For the first time in nearly 3 months, VGK is not in first place in the Western Conference. Pete DeBoer Stars blanking the Golden Knights yesterday 4-0. How is Bruce Cassidy addressing this home slump? And where is the veteran leadership? We'll talk about all that, much more ahead right here on Locked On Golden Knights.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick from Las Vegas. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. You can find us on Twitter at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G, at Locked On VGK, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, Chris, Golden Knights shut out at home. You covered the game yesterday. 4-0 was the final. It was an embarrassment, to be quite honest. Pete DeBoer's Dallas Stars took it to the VGK. Lackluster performance, lackluster effort by VGK. Golden Knights saw that 7-game win streak against the Western Conference Central Division come to a halt yesterday. And Jamie Benn just scored from the beginning, the game winner, right? 5:45 at that mark of the first period off of a turnover by McNabb. In doing so, VGK has now given up with that first goal, the first goal in 8 of the last 9 games. So just give us your perspective of the way things went yesterday for the Golden Knights and how do they fix it?
I think it's important to start by acknowledging Pete DeBoer's presence last night from the compete level and the fact that it was
drinking beer level.
He did. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. You see DeBoer and you are reminded of some of the good, not because his team came and kicked our butt or anything like that, but he just has a smile and a pizzazz about him and just kind of a way he works a room, so to speak. So DeBoer's a good dude. He had his issues as far as maybe the way things went down at the end of his run here in Vegas, but it was nice seeing him. The fans, I would say it was about a 90-10 split for cheers, and you had a couple clowns booing when they were doing the tribute video and stuff like that, which is expected, whatever. But listen, good on DeBoer. It was a vintage Pete DeBoer victory where you do get some traffic to the net. 2 of the 3 of the goals were just like that, where LT couldn't see it, deflections. There's nothing any goalie in the universe is going to do unless it simply hits him. So, let's credit DeBoer and the Dallas Stars for executing a good game plan, taking it to the VGK. And I was on the home side, but I was talking to some of the people I've gotten, just to kind of connect with in the media side. Stephen Marsh, who does a lot with the AHL, he was over with DeBoer, and I guess he made a comment that he was going to chug his first beer in 30 years, which got Danny Webster like, what happened at the All-Star game last year? Because if you remember, DeBoer was absolutely hung the heck over when he was coaching that game. But I think he was alluding to the fact that he hasn't physically chugged a beer like, in one hit. So, listen, the Vegas Golden Knights, maybe this doesn't sound good now. The Vegas Golden Knights allowed Pete DeBoer, a former arch enemy in his own words, a former arch enemy, to walk right into the place where he wasn't wanted. He kicked our butts. He chugged a beer on his way out. Mic drop, exit DeBoer.
Okay, so VGK welcomed back Pete DeBoer by playing his offensive style circa 2021-22.
It wasn't even that.
Everything was on the outside at the beginning of the game.
It wasn't even that, Tony. Like, there were some shots that kind of got through, but, and I've said this before, like, you think back to the Nashville game when Nashville did jump out to the lead and VGK got back in it. You felt like things were, VGK would claw back in. There was nothing yesterday. There was nothing. That first goal was a poor execution, completely poor execution. McNabb throws it right at Amadio's feet. And, Amadio's got to also find a way to accept that pass, but you can put that on either one of them. Jamie Benn, right place, right time, right down Broadway, and rockets it right past LT. And the other 2 goals, again, vintage Pete DeBoer goals. Just, that spray and pray from the point, get some traffic there. And, Dallas didn't play that well yesterday, though, either. That's the thing. The VGK did not do enough to win, but Dallas did enough not to lose. I think if Dallas plays a team that shows up, I don't think Dallas has the same outcome. And VGK didn't need to do a whole lot to win that game. But, I guess Dallas had something figured out. I mean, DeBoer obviously does know this building. He does know a good chunk of these players. He does know, how these players perform when some of the top talent is gone as well. So, maybe you do got to give a little more on DeBoer for his knowledge of Vegas and this team for putting together the proper game plan and chugging a beer on the way out, flashing deuces.
All right. So this was sloppy hockey from the beginning. The two
This is
Dallas goals
below
you
sloppy
talked
hockey.
about.
Keep going.
Okay, you should give a couple of assists to Alex Pietrangelo because he had a couple of deflections that went into the net. Another L for Logan Thompson. L as in Logan. 3 in a row though since the All-Star break. Since he was named an All-Star, I should say. That's tough.
Yeah, no, it's fair, Tony. And you look back at some of the other games, LT has not been playing well. In this game, there's nothing. Aiden Hill would have started that game. Marc-Andre Fleury would have started that game. Robin Leonard would have started that game. It just doesn't. It doesn't matter. The goalie had no relevance on the outcome of this game. But big picture, yes, LT has not had the numbers since the All-Star break, and Aiden Hill on the other side has been playing a little bit better. His numbers don't necessarily support like with save percentage and goals against, but right now the team is winning in front of Aiden and not necessarily winning as much in front of Logan. So I think it's pretty I think it's a very safe assumption that we're going to see Aiden Hill on Thursday against Detroit. And real quick nugget about Detroit. So it was mentioned to me that Nick Lidstrom, I think he's the president of hockey ops now, was down, like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 chairs from me. So was Yzerman. So was Fisher. Like all of this Detroit royalty was in the building last night, just hanging out at the coffee clutch at intermission. Just an absolute. It was remarkable being that close to that level of hockey, just royalty. So just shout out for what those fellows did for that organization, what they're still doing for that organization. And it's kind of funny that they're already here in Vegas instead of in Colorado where they got shellacked. And are they even going to go to Arizona? Or are they just going to stay in Vegas and party until Thursday?
I'm starting to believe that a lot of this, that they pinned the blame on Pete DeBoer for this team coming out with a lack of emotion last year. It wasn't his fault at all. This is the fabric. This is the makeup of this team. You have to believe that because this is circa last season. Okay. We saw this a year ago, Chris. They come out lackluster. They don't even want to play. You could tell that they had no emotion. I don't care if Mark Stone is out or what have you. He's the captain. He's the one. But we'll talk later about the veteran leadership or the lack thereof at times.
I hear what you're saying, and it's hard to argue the points, but there was a much different mindset on this podcast, every other podcast, on the AT&T TV and the Fox Sports radio calls and everyone else that covers this team after the first 45 days of it's all coming together. Oh my God, now I'm doing it. Oh my God, now I'm gonna have a meme. Oh, this is terrible. What is going on here? Oh my goodness. All right, we need to stop video.
We keep having the shakes here. Yeah.
Oh, this is what happens. Wow. Tony, we
have the yips.
We need some sponsors. We need some sponsors. We need some new equipment, guys.
You have the yips like the Dallas Cowboys place kicker. Okay.
And the game doesn't go over because of that.
I know.
Back to where I was going really fast here, and then I'll turn it back here. Things were going better. And but this is also what happened last season. This team was in the playoff hunt for most of the season last year. They were leading the division as far as into February. So there were times when things were going well. And now let's get behind the curtain a little bit more here. Max Pacioretty was onto something, guys. Max Pacioretty. It felt like I took Tony's thunder. It felt like Pacioretty was just blowing some smoke on the way out, maybe not happy about things. No, Pacioretty was onto something. Was it as bad as he's the picture he painted? Maybe. Really curious to see. And they have a day off today, Tony. They have a day off today, by the way.
Yeah. So Alec Martinez, next injury, next man up. He went out, and
no one even knows why or what. We were talking about last night. No one has anything.
You didn't see anything.
Nothing.
Okay.
None of the media has anything. We all have, like 4 of us were talking about it last night.
Okay. I just overrated yesterday that minute 50 in the offensive zone at the end of the first period. Okay. They had the puck, very long shift. Remember at the end of the first period,
Nick Waugh.
and what happens there? Nothing, absolutely nothing. It's one thing to have puck management. You're doing a good job. You're putting a ton of shots on net, but they're just cycling, passing the puck around. I didn't. There were no results, and everyone's like, "Oh, they finally woke up and they're doing well in the offensive zone." I'm like, "Where?"
Yeah, no, it was very strange. And I pointed out that Nick Waugh, he had some contact. I mean, Colin Miller, he was crushing people, and as a lot of people were. But Colin Miller, former BGK, credit him for a game well played. And maybe he wanted to welcome back video, even though he's probably gotten one 4 times already. It's probably this is what his second team since leaving Buffalo, then Dallas.
Buffalo.
So he's making the rounds right now. But Colin Miller, good dude, huge shot when it actually connects, obviously. So going back to the end of the first period, there was some control, at least. There was something on the other side of the blue line where BGK might have had something, but Nick Waugh, he something happened. There's like 40 seconds left in the shift or in the period, and he skates off right away. He didn't look comfortable. And in that circumstance, there's no reason for a forward to go off the ice. I don't care how tired they are. You got to at least finish, and you got to kind of sell out a little bit there. So I'm not saying anything against Nick Waugh. I'm simply saying there was a reason he went off, and something was bothering him there. But at least there was a little bit of momentum at the end of the first. At least they showed they could control the puck on the appropriate side of the rink, and I felt like they would at least come out and start the second period a little bit better. And outside of that one power play, like, I don't know, midway through the second, where it looked like they scored in Cassidy's terminology, it looked like they scored 3 times. I thought they were going to review once. It looked like it was going right in, and I don't know how it didn't go in, but bad luck, unfortunately. So it was just bad, Tony. Like, it was bad. They were not, like, at least the Pete DeBoer game, they would have had 46 shots on goal and would have been bad. What was our goal shots? Well, I looked last night.
I forgot what it was. 20 something, 26 thereabouts. It was
more
than 20.
Lower than the Grand Salami that I lost $11 on.
Okay, so
27.
27. I was off one. Okay, so did you notice? Okay, you talked a little bit about Colin Miller. Part of the game plan for Dallas was to take out Paul Cotter. Yep, they were game planning against Paul Cotter. There was one shift where I'm telling you, he was getting
deep in the
Colin.
first.
Yes, Colin Miller was cross-checking him and just smashing him in the back. Then they were tangling. A lot of players were hitting him in the corners. Did you notice that? And why would they go after Paul Cotter to think that he was part? That was part of the strategy. Part of their game plan was to take him out of the game. There was no doubt. They repeatedly went after him.
I mean, if you're going to talk about the energy players that were on the roster last night, Kolesar, Nick Waugh fits that mold. Nick Waugh was getting a little dirty last night. And then Paul Cotter, I think, is the first one that comes to mind once we get out of that line 4. And Cotter, he's a good hitter. Like, Cotter's best attribute as a hitter isn't when he's actually the attacker. It's when someone is closing in on him and he just explodes and does a reverse hit. But I will buy that they were certainly, when Cotter was out there, they were looking to give him a little bit extra. Are they targeting Cotter? I don't know about that, but are they looking to? I mean, Keegan Kolesar was not seen at all in the first period. I was, the second I saw the line rushes and when they took Nick Waugh off that line, you knew that Kolesar was going to be buried for a while. And we'll talk more about the coaching side, but I thought that was a terrible decision. No way else to say it, on not keeping at least 2/3 of that line 4 intact, because that's been our best line, Tony. That has been the best line. And we joke all we want about Kolesar and stuff, but we have to give him a ton of credit. 6.6 games.
Yeah.
Getting the crowd going with hits, with fights, doing things that don't measure on the score sheet. And now you basically took him out of the game, and the game was out of reach when they tried to get him. He got some first line time. Not a lot, but he got some shifts alongside of Eichel, and insert random player XYZ here. That was the one decision I didn't like, and I honestly thought Aiden Hill was going to get the start yesterday. I was surprised twice before I made it up to my seats after warmups yesterday.
When we return, we're going to talk about what is wrong with VGK players not producing. We address that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. We want to thank our good partners at BetOnline, betonline.net. They have everything that you possibly need. BetOnline with all the lines updated that we saw yesterday. We saw the chances to make it into the playoffs. VGK now falling a little bit behind even Seattle. Now, when you take a look at things there, BetOnline with all the props, odds, and lines that you've needed, and from pro football to college and pro basketball to the NHL, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcast, I should say, you even can find those at BetOnline as well. And we're always the fastest, the easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn a lot more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights. Lost my place there, Chris, as you can tell. Yeah, stumbling, bumbling.
Happens to the best of us. Wait, I thought it was the camera.
It felt like a Monday morning to us. We thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. And again, you could find us on Twitter. And also make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Chris, let's talk about why VGK not producing of late. Again, Cassidy yesterday telling you, I think it was your question, part of it, he had a long answer, lacking effort and execution. And he said he wants to see more out of his leaders.
Yeah, so he did mention against about the division rivals this past Saturday about the leaders not necessarily conveying the importance of division games and something along those lines. And, Cassie says it how it is. Pete DeBoer, happy-go-lucky Pete, his dog could get run over and he'd still come to the rink smiling. And maybe that's not the best analogy, but point being is we get a much more honest perspective of what is happening in the locker room. And you wonder how these messages are being conveyed. We'll get more into the coach side of this in a little bit, but Chandler Stephenson, again, one of our leaders, not necessarily by letter, but he is one of the leaders of this team. I believe he was no shots on goal for the past 3 games, 1 shot on goal last night, and he was also at least buried to start the game down on line 3, which I actually thought that was an interesting move. And even though I didn't like seeing Nick Watt off of line 4, I understand trying him on line 1, to see if that could shake things up. And DeBoer wanted 3 lines now he's in my head. Cassidy wanted 3 lines last night. He wanted to try to find a way because you knew you weren't going to get Ron Bjerg, Freeze. It's not, you can't ask for much out of those fellas. And, Phil Kessel, if anyone's seen him, please let me know because he disappeared last night too. So basically it was 2 lines last night when the dust settled, and those 2 lines didn't do a whole lot. But Stephenson, 1 shot on goal last night. Eichel, 1 shot on goal last night. These players that were just so largely noticeable, you're not seeing it from. And one thing I was thinking about last night, Eichel's line, it's a revolving door. Who's playing with him? Line 3 is a revolving door. Line 4 is an injury revolving door. But where's the misfit line during this? At least the misfit line, they played together for a long time, and they did start the game together last night and spent most of the time, on the ice together. They're not doing anything either right now. Like if there's one line that we need to be able to turn to, that's not going to be line 4, it's Carlson, Marchessault, Riley Smith. That has to be the line while everything else works it out. That needs to be our energy line. That needs to be our go-to line. That needs to be the line that shuts the other team down and creates opportunity. Carlson did have a close opportunity on the first power play last night. He had a stick down, just it missed a stick, fine, whatever. That was a decent power play. And, I'm not one to get on the refs a whole lot, but we'll bring something else up from last night. I thought VGK might have had a couple more. Carlson blatantly tripped. Eichel took a cross check from behind. And, that's not the difference in the outcome, but I try to acknowledge it because I defend the refs so much, probably more than I should. But back to the players, so much talent out there. And you look at the Edmonton game, you look at this game, just they're disappearing for a long time right now. And it's on Cassidy to at least prepare these guys in practice. It's on the players to execute. And somewhere that message, whether he's not doing a good job delivering it or the players don't want to hear it, I don't know.
I got to tell you, watching the game yesterday, and I gave up right after the start of the 3rd period. I said, there's no way that they were going to win the game. Cassidy was fuming. He was so fired up and so mad on that bench.
I got
and
him
you could
in
see
one
him
video,
swearing
just,
and no, he was very animated. Cassidy saying the interior game was poor. Now, I've said that there aren't the right players in this Cassidy system. And I think that that's part of the issue right now.
But why did
is
they go
that
13-3 then?
maybe it's because teams hadn't seen these players,
Okay,
this style, a lot of different things caught them. I don't
that's
know.
fair.
And they
That's fair.
and they did have emotion. You have to admit that they played with a lot more emotion early in the season.
I mean, listen, let's look at two marquee games right now where the players did respond. Jack Eichel's return to Buffalo.
Right.
Bruce Cassidy's return to Boston. So this team does have a gear, and there's other games where we've seen it too. Let's look at the Montreal game when Pietrangelo takes that just nasty board, and the entire bench. I think Chance even ran on the ice in Montreal to chase down whoever it was that hit Pietrangelo that game. So there is a togetherness of this team. There is emotion. But when things aren't going right, it's tough to find that sometimes. And whether that's, for an athlete, whether that's for our personal lives when things aren't going well, we have bad days at work or whatever it is that me and you do for our incomes, Tony, where things, we could have been better and for whatever reason we weren't. And, it's very easy for us to criticize, but I think it's important always just to acknowledge that we're talking about humans right now that, it's not always going to work.
I want to go back to the country club environment. I do, because that was in my notes. It's so funny that you brought that up earlier. And
Sure.
as long as you have these players going to Foley, and Foley's back, right? So he's back for the last two games, and you know that they're whining and complaining to Bill Foley. We've seen that. We know that they meet with him, that they have lunch, and then he says he addresses the issues. The owner needs to get away from all of this. This is why they've been now on their third coach. It's a fact. I'm just talking facts here, because there's something not right here where the players, if they don't get their way, or the amount of ice time, I know Cassidy was like, players, he goes, yeah, a player might come into my office and say, I want to have more ice time. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Like, these are professionals, and I feel that there's more interference. We haven't even gotten into the front office in a long time. But to me, that's part of this country club environment. And if they're not getting what they want, they go and they whine to Bill Foley. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. And when Foley said, oh, yeah, me with the players, they tell me, some of the issues that are going on, and then I go and address them. No, he needs to step back.
It's fair, and it's a different world. And this is something that you and I talked about, whether it's in a professional sports environment or a corporation, a large corporation on the strip, or the multiple large corporations on the strip, where there is this different level of communication. And it's very strange, and it is very strange, because the coach needs to coach, the GM needs to GM, the owner needs to own, and somewhere it all works out. And this is okay. So going back to the first couple seasons, right? We didn't necessarily see this out of Foley. Foley was, he was around, but you didn't see him making a lot of comments about, being as noticeable, about being involved. And then obviously goes back to the Nate Schmidt trade, then the Marc-Andre Fleury trade, and all these, and now back to Pacioretty, all these notable players leaving, and it makes a lot of noise in the media. And Foley has an ego. Like, I don't care what anyone says, Foley has an ego. He wants to be the best. He wants to win. It's bigger than your head on TMZ, Tony. Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, and listen, it's his baby. He has every right to. Let's also acknowledge
that. The TMZ line?
Oh, it's bigger than your head on TMZ. So,
this time it was okay. My last appearance on TMZ, I was much, much better.
There you go. Good job, Tony. Good job. Checks in the mail. So, you wonder how this whole thing is working out. And this is the stuff you're not going to hear. Maybe 2.5 years from now, when Cassidy gets his walking papers and, relieves Pete DeBoer of his duties down in Dallas, maybe we'll get a better perspective of what's happening right now. And there was irony last night, like watching the Pete DeBoer tribute video. We're on our third coach in 6 seasons. Mm-hmm. The tenure of an NHL coach, it's tough. It's tough. And this is partially why I think we get a very honest version of Cassidy. We're going to talk a little more about this later, but these coaches aren't going to be here for a long time. As me and Jesse Granger were talking on the way into a game the other day, coach, he doesn't need to be these guys' players, these guys' friends. He needs to come in and coach his way and do his thing, because chances are,
there's interference. There's no doubt there's interference. You can see that. Exactly. You can sense that. One other thing, though, Cassidy just has to quit it with the line shifts and the line changes. And
I'll save my
he just
comments for the next segment, but yeah.
You want to do that? Okay, we can do that when we return. Again, when we return, we're going to talk about how Bruce Cassidy is currently addressing everything that's going on. How are they going to get rid of this home slump? We'll talk about that when we return here on Locked On Golden Knights. Welcome back on Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. And again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you could find us there on Locked On Golden Knights. And Chris, so how is Bruce Cassidy addressing the home slump here in Las Vegas? And on this homestand, VGK comes in to the next game with a record of 2-3.
It's, what do we say? 4-2-1, Tony. So we're already going to be off on our prediction there. We're off to a good start. And then, so how is he addressing it? Number one, again, with a very honest take. And, one of the things that I'm taking away right now is Cassidy has mentioned you can do so much as the coach. You have to get the players ready, whether it's in practice, whether it's what you discussed before the game starts, but once the game starts, it is on the players to execute. And a statement like that, there's a lot of gravity there, because he is saying, listen, I got these guys set up. I've done all that I can, and now it's on them once the game starts. And the fact that they're not executing, now you have this strange push and pull happening. Who's to blame right now? Is it Cassidy? Is it the players? Is it both? Is it Foley? Is it, I don't know. And one thing I think we do have to acknowledge right now, we're seeing injuries pile up, but they're not bone, like Shea Theodore. Okay. That's a bad luck contact injury. Zach Whitecloud falling on. That's a bad luck injury. But we're seeing other things happening. Mark Stone disappearing. Alec Martinez disappearing. We are seeing some of these non-contact injuries adding up. And one quote that I did have, I've been on the McCrimmon bandwagon for a long time now. And I have been very clear that, listen, we have a veteran roster that is winning and doing things well. And he put together a very good roster that may have a chance at a cup run. I'm not necessarily thinking the same thing at this moment, but I will eat my words if this aging roster starts breaking down and keeps getting hurt like this. Well, I'm starting to take a bite of my own words right now, because Alec Martinez is wearing down. Mark Stone is wearing down. We have other aging. Alex Pietrangelo, my goodness, another game over 30 minutes, and his average ice time probably went down. I mean, so, and it's not all on him. It's, all the defense keeps going down right now around him. So we're starting to pay for the age of this roster and these vets. There is a risk. There's a gamble. So, how this pertains to Cassidy and stuff, it's tough. It is tough for him to put together a roster that is about half NHL players, about half AHL players, and then in the middle you have these journeyman players, Ben Hutton, for example, who don't. Oh my God! Now I'm doing it again. Oh my goodness! What is happening here? All right, we're back, friends. What a weird day. What a day. So,
we've got gremlins. Yeah.
It's just, there's something going on. Maybe blame Zoom. Hey, everybody. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties today, like the Vegas Golden Knights at home. Maybe this podcast is slumping a little bit. But for myself and Tony Cardasco, thank you very much for checking on Locked On Vegas Golden Knights. You can catch us tomorrow, hopefully with a more complete episode that we will get through and make it all the way until the end. So thank you very much for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. Your team every day.